This is Skeptic Sage, a Mr. Philos71, whose videos are probably the most astonishing on the internet. You then talk about the universe needing something eternal at the end of your little speech about the Bible. Well, if God is eternal, then why not just, if you can imagine the universe being the God being eternal, then why not just imagine the universe being eternal, as in the multiverse theory? You then make a quote, which I'm going to quote because it is the most obnoxious use of language and the most vague use of sophistry and the ability to influence people without really being logical, but by using the vagueness of language. And this is what you say: we see here the constant emergence of wisdom. Wisdom? What does that even mean? If you're being scientific and you're being logical, why would you use a vague word like that? But we see the constant emergence of wisdom, okay, of ordered complex information. Are you talking about the information in our heads, in computers? The universe itself described as information? What are you talking about? Of ordered complex information that is nowhere hinted at either in the governing laws of nature or in the particles or matters that form. I'm going to stop right there. Number one, if the laws don't hint at what we see, then the laws would have to, by very nature, be false. Secondly, the very people that you talked about, Hoyle and Pagels, go on and on at length, as do all scientists, showing that, in fact, everything that we see is hinted at, in fact, even explained by these laws. So what is the complexity you're talking about that isn't hinted at by the laws? So you talk about how we need these laws to pre-exist, to make everything happen, and then claim that, well, later on we get complexity that the laws can't supposedly describe. Now, let's say for some reason that there's stuff out there that the laws don't. We've got laws describing the universe, and there's things going on in the universe that the laws can't describe. Well, that means we simply have something that is unknown. We have something that is, in fact, a mystery. But that means that your whole entire argument is nothing more than a very, very fancy, complicated sophistry rehashing of the God of the Gaps. In other words, because there is stuff that is so odd and weird and seemingly improbable, and because there is always a gap in between what the laws can tell us and that can show us and what exists, therefore God must always be in that gap. Well, again, the answer to the God of the Gaps argument is that that gaps get closed, and as soon as a gap is closed, so we figure something out, you simply move God into the new gap. Well, there's always going to be a gap in our knowledge. To claim that a gap in knowledge means that the knowledge is impossible, and therefore a second assumption that that impossibility denotes some sort of creator, is again an unwarranted assumption. And again, you come up with the biblical verses again. God. Now, you ended your book by holding the God delusion, and you have your little character you're playing put the book down and pick up another book. So I thought I would do the same thing. I'm going to put down one scientist's book, Mr. Richard Dawkins, who's a scientist, and I'm going to pick up another book called Breaking the Spell by Daniel Dennett, and I thought I'd end with that. What is this book about? It's about what happens when you scientifically analyze religion. And as you've probably figured out, you end up breaking the spell. Well, I'm hoping today that that's what I've done. Your whole entire video was a spell. Your whole entire video was a fancy, smanchy use of complicated camera tricks and visuals and vague language and where you throw in assertions, but you use gestures and you use enunciations as if you're making arguments that are obvious extensions of what you've already said, when in fact they are nothing of the kind. They are simply assertions, assertions without evidence. And where do we end up with? Where do we end up at the end of this? We end up with our spell being broken. And what is the spell? The spell is the illusion that there's evidence for God. In fact, there isn't. So when you read this book, you end up coming to this book. This is a description of the psychological effect of this. And the psychological effect of this is that the spell inside our heads is broken. What I would ask you, Mr. Philos, is why are you afraid of people's spells being broken, or your own spell being broken? Why do you need to use fancy visuals, fancy language, pseudo-argumentation, fake conclusions, in order to try to convince people? Why do you need to put a spell over people? Why? What is your real motivation? Why do you need to believe in something so bad that you need other people to believe in it? Why is other people not believing the same thing you do so threatening to you that you feel the need to make a video? Why are you afraid of people coming to the conclusion that there's no evidence for God? Let's say we did assume that there's no evidence for God. Let's say the spell was broken. Would this mean we should stop believing? Are there maybe not other reasons to believe other than evidence? Maybe because it makes us feel good. Maybe because it makes us better people. If it doesn't make us better people, maybe we could change religion to make it do so. But how can we do that when we're under the spell that religion is logical and rational and therefore perfect the way it is and therefore doesn't need to be changed? In fact, how do we take religion and make it work for us when we're under its spell? That's all I have to say, and I hope that some of the people that have watched this video, I hope that their spell has been broken, and that you have been freed in the same way that a witch, in the same way that a victim that is being bewitched by a witch in a book is freed when a spell that has been cast over them has been broken. This is Skeptic Sage saying to you at the end, break the spell.